Hello everyone, I hope everyone is feeling okay. Today we'll be reading from Matthew 14. At the time Herod the Tetrarch heard the report about Jesus, he said to his attendants, "This is John the Baptist, he has risen from the dead. That is why miraculous powers are at work in him." Now Herod had arrested John and bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of the people because they considered him a prophet. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for them and pleased Herod so much, and that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." The king was distressed, but because of his oaths and his dinner guest, he ordered that her request be granted, and he had John beheaded in prison. His head was brought in on a platter and given to the girl who carried it to her mother. Here we see that Herod has envy. He's envious of his brother's wife. I guess the lady was very pretty, but he was very envious. And in today's time, it's easy to be envious and covet what other people have, but we should ask for help from the Lord, not to be envious, and be grateful with what we have and be content. And we also see here that Herod makes an oath that backfires on him, and he beheads John because of that oath. And we see that oaths are a very strong thing, because if you make an oath, you have to follow through with action with whatever oath you have made. And we continue with Matthew 14 verse 12. John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. When they went and told Jesus, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." They answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up to the heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Here we see that Jesus feeds the crowd of 5,000 people, and we see that those who trust on the Lord, they don't have to worry about anything. Don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, what they're going to do. They just give it all to Jesus. They just give it all to the Lord, and they trust and believe and have faith that He is on their case. Though it's easy to doubt, but God says, "Trust Him, trust in me." And as Christians, we have to do that. And then as we continue, Matthew 14 verse 12, immediately Jesus made the disciples to get into a boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. While he dismissed the crowd, after he dismissed them, he went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Then evening came. He was there alone, but the boat was already considerable distance from land, buffeted by winds, because the wind was against it. During the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water. and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" I like Peter. I wish to be like Peter. I love his attitude on how when he sees Jesus, it's only him. He just have one track kind of mind, just Jesus, and he's just trusting in him. But then the moment he starts to remove his eyes from Jesus and look around, he sees the wind and he starts to doubt the mighty power of the Lord, and then he starts to sink. As much as he started to sink, he still called out on the Lord. It is easy to look around us as people in the times we're living right now, and looking around and seeing what's happening around us and just doubting and losing faith in God. And in that way, it will be so hard for you to even call out for help from the Lord, because you feel like you have downslidden so far. But then here Peter shows that the moment you call on the Lord, he's right there with you. He didn't even leave you to begin with. You're the one who removed your eyes from him. As we continue, when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." When they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret. When the men of that place recognized Jesus, they sent word to all the surrounding country. People brought all their sick to him and begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed. I hope you are blessed. Have a lovely day.